we going? Where are we going, boo-boo? Are we going to the bar? Are you gonna run with your friends? Are you ready? I can sense the excitement. It's brewing. I'm trying to film. I'm trying to take people along in my life, so here it is. Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm finally remembered to take my camera, my phone, whatever. I'm filming this on my phone. I'm wearing my Miami hat in solidarity for everyone who is getting whacked by the storm right now. And this little one is in the back of the car. We're on our way to the dog park. It's a beautiful day. No one would ever believe that there is a really bad storm right now. So I guess we're lucky. So good morning. Yes, I'm going for my little bit of a walk here. Decided to take you with me. I have to go up to Boston later to go to class, so I'm looking forward to that. It's kind of fun. The idea of it, actually. I like being on the train, so I think it'll be fun. Kind of. I don't know. I'm going to class. How fun could it be? So I'm walking today. I'm still running a little bit, but actually this week I've had kind of a lot of pain in my hips, which I get from time to time, because I know there's old injury stuff in there that I will have to deal with at some point. But right now, when I start to hurt, I just take anti-inflammatories. Not a lot though, because I think that's just as bad. And I go for walks, so I don't pound on my joints, because at this point, it's unnecessary wear and tear that I don't need. So yeah, Monday morning, this is it. Can you see? It's kind of pretty. It's not, I'm saying this, I sound kind of jerky. I'm saying this because I'm used to when I lived in California and other places where there's so much nature, you don't even know where to put yourself. So this is very much the opposite of that. But I try to utilize what we have here. And I'm just happy to be outside, and I'm grateful because it's a beautiful day. Okay, so gotta go home, get my stuff ready to go, get on the train at 3 o'clock, get learning. Hi, so it's a gorgeous night here. I'm in Harvard Square. Take a look. Yeah. See? And I have a few minutes before class, and one of the things I always wanted to do was to buy a hat for my dad. My dad loves hats. I was gonna get him a Harvard hat, and then I was like, oh man, I don't know, I haven't even taken an exam yet. I don't know how I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna go buy my dad a hat, is that serious? And then I was like, okay, you know what am I gonna do? Am I gonna say I don't deserve that until I pass? That just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm gonna go do it, because he deserves it, man. He paid for this. All right, I'll be back. Purchased. This whole talking into your phone thing gets a little bit easier as you go. So almost try to ignore that people are probably staring at me, but that's fine. I think I'm too old to care. Maybe a little bit. Just have to work on keeping my finger out of the frame all the time. Okay, so I have a couple of minutes before class, and I just wanted to talk about something that's been kind of bothering me lately. I saw a PSA on the news the other day for awareness over concussions for football teams, which is amazing, and it's awesome, and it's a good thing, and we should definitely be, dealing with this. We should be spreading awareness about this. It's really dangerous, and kids don't need to have head injuries, all these different things. But just as detrimental to their health would be
the possibility of getting a concussion for a young man. Also detrimental to the health of a young female athlete of ending up with amenorrhea because she was not educated properly, just as we weren't educated properly about the concussions. It made me think why we don't have a PSA about HA for young female athletes. Why don't we have a PSA about that? It's probably related to the fact that we would have to acknowledge the fact that women have periods and or vaginas, which none of us want to do. But it's just curious, something I would love to talk about, work on, talk to people about, get some awareness going about it. It's pretty amazing to me. But other than that, class tonight, it's going to be pretty cool. We're talking about bias in statistics this evening. Spent a lot of time snuggling up to variances and standard deviations for the last 2 weeks. Somebody asked me about how many hours per week I'm studying, and I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 right now. I'm hoping that might change. Ooh, there's my thumb again. So yes, I've been spending quite a bit of time studying, but like I said, I think once my confidence level goes up, it'll be much better. I also have a research project that I'm doing with the research team, none of which are around here, geographically speaking. So I'm the only one who's actually local to the university, but everybody else is like everywhere. So California and Toronto and all kinds of places. And we have conference calls a couple of times a week to talk about our project, and we're working on some really cool things. And that's pretty exciting. They certainly have this distance learning thing dialed. Like, you don't even really notice that you're not in a classroom setting. There's tons of opportunities to interact with your classmates and tons of opportunities to interact with not only the teachers but the TAs and everything else. It's really cool, the technology that they use, and it's amazing. So that part has been really cool. So yeah, tonight it's all about bias. So gonna head into class now. It's usually like sub-zero in there, so I brought a sweater. And that's it. What a beautiful night it is here. I just can't believe how gorgeous the weather is. It wasn't even this nice in Rhode Island. It's much warmer here. It's just beautiful. I think I'm just high. I'm high on Harvard. Oh God, I'm such a loser. See you later. Hi everybody! Welcome to A Case of the Gels, officially, since if you made it this far, you made it through my pretty sad attempts at trying to vlog. I do like the idea of taking you guys along on the journey with me as I go back to school, so you might see more of that in the future. Plus, Tulip is cute, so like, who doesn't want to see a little bit of her? I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk to you about something that's been on my mind this week. I've been getting a lot of emails from women who are kind of in the initial stages of recovering from amenorrhea, and they are noticing that they're having some sticking points. This is not uncommon. We will all go through this. What ends up happening is that there comes a point where people understand that they need to reduce their exercise, change their diet, and they're going through the motions, but there's this mental component that just, it's just not clicking. Women sometimes find that their progress is hindered and they're trying to figure out why. They're doing the right things, but there's a big piece missing. So I wanted to talk today about why that progress seems to elude us and what we can do to be more proactive. Well, you know what they say about the definition of insanity? It's that you do the same thing over and over again, but you expect a different result. The same thing happens to us when we recover from amenorrhea. You know how this goes. We make some changes, but we haven't made all the changes we really need to make. We decreased our running mileage, let's say, or we stopped going to the gym 6 days a week and now maybe we're only going 3. We increased our carbohydrates, but we're not increasing calories. We're still counting macros, whatever it is. It's like we're there, but we're not all the way there. Yet we're expecting progress. It's like a really big paradox. And it becomes apparent pretty quickly when we find that things are just not shifting. The worst thing is that even when they do shift, let's say we do get our period back, we still find ourselves stuck in this old school mindset that we had before, and we're just not feeling better. Yes, of course, we're happier that we're getting our period and we're like so excited about that. But then once that high kind of wears off, we realize that we're still stuck in a very similar mindset that got us here in the first place. I've been getting emails from girls that are going back to counting macros, they're going back to running, all these different things right after they first get their period. And again, it's that missing component that just isn't clicking. Repeating our bad habits, because let's face it, that's what they are, hinders progress. No matter what we do on the outside, so less exercise and better diet, The inside is still suffering. When it comes down to it, the change in exercise and diet is kind of technical. We really need to get deeper inside to bring about lasting change. It's kind of like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation. Trying to make all this great progress with your health, which is admirable, but if we're building it on top of sand, it's not gonna be very strong. I read this quote the other day that said, habits persist from mindlessness. Wow, this was another big one for me. Habits persist from mindlessness. All of this time, I thought that I was being really dialed into myself by doing all this training and really like paying attention to my diet and being very disciplined. For some reason, I thought back in the day that discipline equated with me being very, very, very focused on like doing the right thing for myself. When in fact, I can see now, and maybe you'll see for yourself, that a lot of the motivation I had, and maybe a lot of the motivation that you have, is really just out of fear. And anything we do out of fear is absolutely the opposite of mindful. It's just instinct. It's just base. It's nothing. It's just a reaction. I did some research on what the experts say are good steps to progress. How do we progress forward? How do we do the opposite of that just instinctual kind of thought process that propels us back into our old bad habits? How do we get out of this loop? So there's this book, it's called A Force for Good, and it's the Dalai Lama's vision for our world. I didn't read the whole book, I'll be honest, but I did read some excerpts, and there's some pretty interesting stuff there. So when we're talking about destructive mental habits, the Dalai Lama says what we really have to do is recognize them. That seems easy, right? But it's not so easy if you've been thinking those thoughts for so long that they start to sound normal. So the first thing we have to do is recognize the thought process. Be able to see it as it comes at you. As soon as you get up in the day and you think about what you're gonna do, and your brain goes to, well, I have to do X because I've always done X and X is safe, that right there is a place where a light bulb should go off in our heads and say, we need to take a look at why we're thinking this way. The second thing to do is to replace that with a rational, positive thought. See, because the thing is that first thought that you had, it's irrational. It's just based on, like we said, fear, and it's based on nothing logical. So we have to replace that with something logical and something that's in line with the goals that you have for your health. The third thing we have to do is redirect with an action that's more in line with those new goals. So to go back to our previous example, if you wake up on a Tuesday and you say, I always run 10 miles on a Tuesday, so therefore I have to run 10 miles today, the idea would be to recognize that, think what is logical and positive, and then the action would be, maybe I go for a 4-mile walk instead. The fourth thing we need to do is stop making excuses for ourselves. Excuses are really only there to catch us when we fall. They feel really good to lay back into, but I promise you there's no substance there. All we're doing is just perpetuating the same crap that got us here in the first place. And if you dig those excuses apart, you're gonna find that they're pretty flimsy. We all do this. If we look inside, we can see where we tell ourselves stories, what ends up being an excuse, what isn't really all that much of a compelling reason to do or not to do things. When you go through these 4 steps, emotions will come up. The Dalai Lama says we need to notice these emotions and think about what they mean. This completely stops the whole process of doing things just out of reaction or instinct and requires that we actually sit with things and spend time with them and understand why they're there. This gets us back to mindfulness. You can't do this without thinking, without being mindful of your actions, where you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. This is important stuff. We're making an active choice to get better. We're making an active choice to recover. You can't do that by just blowing off all your thought processes and emotions. At the end of the day, you have to be able to turn the unconscious into the conscious. I know this is pretty big stuff, and we're definitely going to be talking about this more, but I just wanted to introduce the concept. I know that this is work that you will not only do at the beginning stages of your recovery, but all the way through and even out the other side. I'm still learning every single day, and as you know, I'm 1.5 years in at this point. I'm grateful for the opportunity, though, to see bad habits, where they are, and how I can get rid of them. And whenever I'm in doubt, I try to ask myself, is this just something that I do because I do it, or is it something that I'm being mindful about? The answer always surprises me. I am so excited about the fact that Dirty Runner is on the blog this week. If you haven't checked out Sarah's article, she answered a bunch of my questions over on acaseofthejills.com. Go check it out now. She's pretty amazing, and definitely follow her on Instagram. Thank you for following me on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook. Email me if you have any questions, acaseofthejills@gmail.com. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon.